This identification is on the Exodusters, and the Exodusters was a large group of African Americans who migrated away from the South beginning in 1879. So this was about 14 years after the Civil War was over, and so 14 years after slavery was abolished. So these Exodusters made a long journey to start a new life going west. You can see here a map of the route to Kansas, to the state of Kansas. The map shows the Exodusters leaving from Nashville, Tennessee. But this map, African Americans from all over the area around Tennessee moved in that direction. But it's not like the Exodusters specifically came from Nashville. Actually, the Exodusters came from many states in the South. They came from Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, of course, Tennessee, as you can see in the map, Alabama, and Georgia. This map actually is a little better map because it shows that it was from multiple locations that the Exodusters migrated or moved towards the west. As free African Americans, they decided it was time to leave the South and to start a new life. So contrary to what might have thought to be a logical thing, that freed African Americans would go north, but for a variety of reasons, they chose to go west, especially this first large migration. I think they were attracted by the farmland and the farming, and because they had come from an agrarian society themselves, meaning a farming society, the Exodusters wanted to have a chance of working on the land, but now working as their own owners and their own farmers, rather than go north where more jobs would have been in industry or factories or in cities. So this group left on the trek, and some of them went in the river on steamships or found other transportation. So they arrived in Kansas, and of course Kansas has cold winters and it has 4 seasons. It has good farmland in the right season, and so and also part of this was motivated because the United States government was giving through the Homestead Act was allowing even encouraging people to move into prairie lands to settle and to encourage economic development. So homestead land was many times free land that would be announced in newspapers or land given at a very low price. And so the Exodusters, part of that is a reason why they felt they could succeed. And their leadership, the ones who were the heads of their group, who were kind of arranging the transportation and inspire the others, knew of this. So and there were some ads in the newspaper that were read about homesteading, and so off they went, and it was a successful trip to Kansas to start a new life. So here we see some of the Exodusters, and of all, actually, there were 40,000, about 40,000. Originally 20,000, but that grew to 40,000, and there were 40,000 Exodusters, and they were quite proud. They were the name Exodusters, meaning named after the Bible, where the Jews had escaped to freedom. So, and had a better life. So the Exodusters, already being free, though, decided to leave the South for a new location, probably for new attitudes, and for a new future. And farming was the main thing they were planning on doing. And most of them turned to farming. There's like an old house in the farm area of Kansas, and they spread out. They went some in this area by Nicodemus, Kansas, and then spread out in the area of farmland, land that wasn't claimed by anyone. Then they claimed. Here's another shot of would seem like a few families together, and taking a formal portrait shot. So again, we see a shot of the Exodusters in Kansas. So there were 40,000, so we just have a few shots. And in that era, you're lucky to have any shots in the 1800s. But here's a few shots of more Exodusters living on the land and living in the open and in the freedom of the wide open prairie. You see some of the Exodusters working the farmland and preparing it, and sometimes they would get some of them were successful running their own farms, and then quite a few, a number of them ended up working as farmhands for other farms to make more money. So not all of them own their own farms in the end, but they didn't own their own farms. They worked for wages as farmhands for other larger farms. And then they raised their families and settled in this area. The area is called Nicodemus, Kansas. That's the town, but obviously they were out in large areas of the prairie too, with the farming. But that would be one of the main towns that they congregated at and opened other businesses too, and also were customers for businesses that were already there. We see here a shot of, this would be a later shot, someone looking back, of what he says here is the St. Francis Hotel, which was built in 1881. It had a one-story stone kitchen. I imagine the hotel supplied food, for its tenants, because food was obviously really important in the Old West. And then it served as the site of the first post office in Nicodemus, and so it was it's the oldest recorded African American operated post office. Okay, so, but it should be known that not all of the Exodusters, especially their children, some of them grew up, they didn't want to be farmers. They went for other jobs. Maybe they went out west for the gold rush, or they moved into other positions. Like children do, they chose their own future. And many of the free blacks went into even being cowboys and working on the range with ranches and with cattle. That's where you see here the picture of a black cowboy. So many of the Exodusters, like I said, eventually the younger people went into other businesses too. And cowboys was a big thing. It says in your textbook 25% of cowboys are Hispanic or black in that era, which really hasn't been covered in movies, but that's reality. So that's just an interesting sideline of some of the things the Exodusters ended up doing with their lives. And like here, you see more cowboys who They very well have had ties to the Exodusters. So the Exodusters were from 1879, and they went to Kansas for a new life as farmers, and they lived there and had a decent lifestyle, a long-term lifestyle in Kansas, and it was part of their migration of free African Americans to the West in 1879.